My name is David Witherington. I'm an associate professor at the University of New Mexico. And with respect to Karger, I'm the editor-in-chief of the journal Human Development. So my empirical research focuses largely on the development of emotion and cognition in infancy and early childhood. More recently, I've broadened my research focus to look at the phenomenology of subjective experience, specifically looking at the lived experience of emotion and mapping the temporal dynamics of emotional experience. I also do a lot of work, not empirical work, but broader conceptual work, looking at the conceptual foundations of my discipline, developmental science, and identifying potential conceptual confusions in the discipline and trying to remedy those confusions. I am affiliated with the Jean Piaget Society, which is an international developmental science society. Currently, I'm past president. I've served on the board of the Jean Piaget Society for 10 years. The society largely revolves around elucidating the conceptual backdrop to our discipline of developmental science. So the society was founded in service of really establishing clear conceptual guidelines for how to do developmental science, clear conceptual guidelines for how to frame research in developmental science. So it's a society which essentially provides conceptual guidance to the empirical work that we do in developmental science. So I first was introduced to Karger Publishers through my interest in the journal Human Development as a graduate student at the UC Berkeley. I was especially interested in understanding the conceptual founding of our discipline of developmental science. I was interested in understanding the meta-theoretical orientations of our discipline, and I naturally gravitated to the journal Human Development because at that time, and still today, it really is at the forefront of that kind of conceptual analytic work, at the forefront of work elucidating these conceptual foundations. So my introduction to Karger was through my introduction to the journal Human Development. I relied on it heavily as a graduate student and have continued to rely on it heavily in my scholarship as a professor. So my current affiliation is as editor-in-chief of the journal Human Development, and I began working with Karger in July of this year. That's when my editor-in-chief position first started. So it's a relatively recent affiliation. What I really appreciate about Karger is the more intimate approach, kind of family-oriented, intimate approach to publishing. So there's, from my perspective, there's a very warm, inviting atmosphere in Karger, and I think that atmosphere translates to the quality of the journals. The journals are really, of course, top of the line in terms of content, but they also, I think, they invite readership in a way that, I don't know, the family kind of nature of the publishing invites a more open atmosphere for really back and forth in terms of readership, in terms of interaction with the journal. I've certainly experienced that many times that I've published with Human Development. I just started my editor-in-chief position with the journal Human Development, but I'm very excited about prospects of a long term with this editorship. So I'm looking forward to a long stay as editor. I'm already enjoying what I'm doing and looking forward to not just maintaining the quality of the journal, but also leading the journal in new directions. And some of those new directions may take some time to implement. So in 5 years, I anticipate still being editor-in-chief and hopefully having established some innovations while also maintaining the current scholarship of the journal. I'm very excited about being part of Karger Publishing and being editor of Human Development specifically. And I really see this journal as really the standard bearer in the realm, not just of developmental science, but of psychological science generally. It's a standard bearer of conceptual analysis in our discipline. And from my vantage point as a philosopher of science and also a meta-theoretician, essentially, I greatly value what Human Development, the journal, brings to our discipline, because it brings that kind of conceptual awareness and conceptual analysis that so few other journals really do. And what's nice about Human Development is that it has a broad appeal. It's certainly developmentally focused, but at the broadest level. So I really think the work that gets published in Human Development translates to all corners of our broader discipline of psychological science. Well, the journal traditionally has focused on publishing basic articles and then often commentaries on those articles. We've also had occasional book reviews, and of course we have special issues. My interest is in setting up more focal sorts of content within general issues, content revolving around controversies, conceptual controversies in our discipline. So I would like to implement kind of a point-counterpoint structure for some of our publishing. It could be based around a target article, so someone submits a target article, and then instead of simply publishing a commentary or two on that, I would like to structure it more systematically to have full article responses to the target article, one response being pro the article, one response being con the article, in the sense of providing this point-counterpoint balance and really exploring more fully the controversies that are addressed in the target article. So it's comparable to what we've done in some respects, but it's expanding it in the sense of really formally drawing out the nature of the controversy in the discipline and trying to map out the conceptual space for that controversy. So that's something I would like to focus on. I've also thought about the possibility, although this will be harder to implement, of going the route, like occasionally for occasional issues of behavioral and brain sciences, where you have a single target article and then numerous but very small responses to that article, commentaries essentially, and then a response to the commentaries. So that's what I'm really interested in, using the journal as a forum for generating ideas and generating his dialogue about these issues. Because as psychological scientists, we often assume that the controversies in our discipline can ultimately be adjudicated through empirical work. But many of the controversies in our discipline actually aren't empirical controversies. They're philosophical controversies, they're conceptual controversies. And the only way to really adjudicate those is through philosophical discourse or conceptual analysis. Because, basically people who are on different sides of the controversy are also actually operating according to different truth criteria regarding the controversy. So whatever data you throw at the controversy will be filtered through different interpretive lenses. And so the data themselves can't adjudicate anything. You ultimately have to work through the controversy at the lens, at the level of the conceptual lens itself.